Hello, my name is Fear Dragon, and welcome to another Modest Musings. Today is November 30th, and today's topic is going to be about talk shows. Talk shows are something that, ever since the days of State of the Game, where JP, In Control, Artosis, Day 9, a few others all got together and started just talking about the scene in the game, there's always been that kind of desire from a lot of people in the community to see more of that, especially since State of the Game no longer around anymore. And we've had some different other show hosts that kind of step forward. You had Chanman for a while, Lycan, Desro, even some of the newer people like I think Wardy and the Landros were running one for a little while. You have Toast. There are a wide variety of people who have attempted this, but I'm going to talk a little bit about my personal thoughts on why I think many of these could have been much better and why State of the Game works so well given its time period, why I don't think it would work as well now in the exact form that it existed in before, but why it could still work and why I'm really looking forward to In Control's talk show as well. That he's actually announced that he's trying to get a StarCraft talk show going that will be not just StarCraft 2 but StarCraft Brood War as well. But all right, let's start with State of the Game. State of the Game was a really interesting endeavor because at the time, you have to remember, streaming still kind of newish. I mean, we're talking like 2020, I think it was 2011 or so. State of the Game kind of got started, and in the context of then, players and a lot of the top commentators were not super accessible. There were some players that would stream. I mean, we definitely had like people streaming for sure, but there wasn't that same degree of accessibility that we have now. You wouldn't see In Control or Artosis or all these other people streaming consistently and being so reachable on Twitter and all these other things. Like it was a very different landscape at the time, where you were starting to get more and more of these players and personalities onto that social media platform and to become easily accessible to talk with them and do all these other things. So I think at the time, State of the Game, one of the biggest reasons why it was so successful is you got to see these people in a very different way. You didn't see, In Control just competing. You didn't see Day 9 commentating. Day 9 probably one of the exceptions, actually, just because he did the Day 9 daily, and you got to see him in a very casual, different environment. But people like Artosis, people like Idra, etc., you didn't get to see them just hanging out and talking with friends. And that was where a lot of the power for State of the Game was. If you actually go back and rewatch a lot of those episodes, a lot of the episodes are not actually even discussing much of StarCraft. A lot of it is just friends hanging out and having a good time. Do forgive the Skype notifications. But one of the big things that ended up happening after that is people did become more accessible. It's very easy to find In Control and Rotterdam and, Snoot and Mana and all these other people streaming and are very easy to talk to and very easy to get access to now. So that kind of same privilege doesn't quite exist as it did back in the days of State of the Game, but what we do still lack is getting to see people in the environment hanging out with friends as much and just having a good time. I think this is one of the reasons why certain people like In Control could put together a talk show with a bunch of his friends who are some of the kind of elite people in the industry, even if it is much more easy to access and talk to a lot of those people now. Getting to see In Control in that kind of a relaxed environment with a lot of other people like Artosis or Day 9 and Tasteless, etc., as we saw with the Brood War launch stream, that is something that I think is still kind of missing a lot in the scene right now. You get to see that at Home Story Cup, and that's kind of it. Home Story Cup, and then maybe like a few other occasional events, such as, I guess, the Brood War relaunch stream, etc. Now, since then, we've had a lot of attempts at talk shows. Chanman did a really great job. He actually brought on some really fantastic star power, and the most powerful episodes all revolved. And here's another thing about this, is that I'm going to go into this and talk about how I believe State of the Game worked, why it works so well, and then the other talk shows, what they didn't really have that same advantage they could take advantage of. A lot of the times they would have some good star power, but they really went in a very different direction. And I think that they got very close to something really strong, but didn't quite reach it. It started with Chanman. It really did start with Chanman, who had this idea of kind of doing this variety topic talk shows where you would talk about everything going on in the scene at a time. And when he did that, a lot of the times what he would find is, yeah, he would get some really good topics, and sometimes the topics would be total busts. Like, the kind of, I think the joke on Unfiltered was, so Destiny, did you see GSL last night? No, well, okay. Let me just read through the results, and then we can just move on. It's like, okay, well, is it providing much value there? There is maybe something to be said about, yeah, you're going over results that people would be too lazy to go otherwise read, so you at least get to mention it. And maybe there's like some result that even if nobody actually saw the games, they can make a remark about, oh, this player's been upcoming in the scene. And occasionally that would happen. But usually most of the best discussions on Unfiltered would happen around one topic that would last for about like 30 to 40 minutes of the show, and they would cut it short a lot of the time, even though there was like an intense discussion around it. And that was that ended up just being the big focus of that show, was whenever those kinds of discussions came up, that's when everyone got very heated. That's when everyone got really interested in what was going on. That's when you would have people like Total Biscuit and Red Eye and all these other people calling into the show or coming in as guests and talking about these really, really fascinating things. And I think that was the power of a lot of Chanman shows, was finding those topics and getting that big star, not just the star power, but a lot of very passionate people to talk about those topics that they had a lot of thoughts on. Now, one of the kind of disadvantages that I feel like is, again, that it tried to do too much, I think. And I'm not just saying like, oh, Chanman is at fault for this, he should have known better. I mean, he was kind of the first generation, I think, of these new shows. And I think that a lot of people followed that same model where you had, you had not only Chanman, but you had Desro doing a similar thing. You had Lycan with the late game doing a similar thing. Desro with Remax, Lycan with the late game. You have Toast with Dank Shrine doing a similar thing, where everybody is just trying to come in and focus, try to do too much, I think. I honestly think that unless you have that same kind of dynamic that, say, In Control and I keep bringing up In Control just because I know he's doing that talk show later, so, but In Control, Artosis, and InMe JP and everyone on State of the Game had, unless you have that kind of dynamic of really good friends shooting the shit and talking with each other, I really think that there's a lot more power in having a single topic show where you focus in on one topic, you cater the guests to be people who you can expect to have very passionate thoughts on that topic, and then to discuss that topic at length, and really dive deeply into it and the different aspects of it. I think that ends up being a much more compelling show, because there's one concept that I think really, really, I don't know if it goes over people's heads or what. I don't want to sound elitist and say like, oh, I have the answers that nobody else has, but I really do feel like there's a lack of this sense of momentum in the shows a lot of the time. And this would happen a lot in the late game. This would happen a lot on lots of different shows, where there'd be these moments where someone would say something, and this is one of the reasons why I like the whole, oh, Destiny, did you watch the GSL group kind of thing would be a problem. But you'd say something like, hey, so did you see this? No. Okay. Well, we'll just move on then. And you have to realize that in the way that I think a lot of normal streaming works, where you're just kind of hanging around on your stream, you can have those kind of downtime periods because the stream lasts for such a long period of time. It's not a show so much as it is kind of just a glimpse into someone having fun or playing a game, and like you're kind of expecting a lot of that normality of conversation, where there are just gaps where nobody's saying anything for a little bit, or there are those kind of awkward pauses and moments. But when you're watching a show, oftentimes I think that, especially a talk show, you really expect there to be that momentum where things keep going, things keep swinging. As soon as you have those gaps, that's where people, intentionally or unintentionally, lose interest for bits and pieces of time. When you have people who are watching shows And notice this, actually, if this ever happens to you, you're watching like a talk show or something, and you have that moment where you realize, I actually wasn't listening for the past like minute or two, or I stopped listening and I started doing something else. Those are those moments that I think are really, really important to try and minimize. It's difficult to eliminate them entirely, especially if you don't have a lot of reliable people constantly coming on every single week. You don't have that chemistry that you end up building. But you can try to minimize it by having people who are very passionate about a topic. People are passionate about a topic. They want to talk about things. You aren't, as a host, constantly having to like pull people's teeth to get good answers and good conversation coming out of them. And I think that's actually really important. It's the number one thing that I think that people are missing right now in a lot of talk shows, is that there is this constant lack of momentum. The ball stops rolling so constantly that a lot of people lose interest and will either tune out, or they won't tune out mentally. They'll literally just close the stream because they lost interest, so they'll go do something else. So I guess this all kind of leads up into the Landros recently started a new talk show called The Run By. It was actually really awesome. I enjoyed it a lot. I hope that he is able to do more of it. I know he's planning to do more of it. And I have given this spiel to literally every single person ever since before, or everyone after Chanman. I've given the spiel of my opinions on momentum and all this other stuff for talk shows to Lycan and Desro and Toast and the Landros and Wardy, etc. But I'm really hoping that we end up finding more of these shows that are okay with just embracing the idea of single topic shows that really want to be heavily focused on just having good discussion rather than trying to cover too many things. And beyond that, either that, or you just have more shows that are similar to and actually embrace the idea of what made State of the Game so great, which was a group of friends that were all pretty fun and interesting, and just listening to them talk and listening to them hang out and talk about, topics related to StarCraft, but do so as friends would, not as you would on a talk show necessarily. Which sounds kind of weird, saying that that's the idea for the talk show, is to talk like you're not on a talk show, but I think that was a lot of the pull of that show. But yeah, that's going to be it. I already had this episode kind of running a little bit longer than I wanted to. Hopefully you guys enjoyed, and I hope that you guys have a wonderful, wonderful week. I'm just playing StarCraft and streaming it a little bit more lately. So check that out over on my Twitch channel. If you're interested, twitch.tv/FearDragon64. Doing a lot of DT base trades and stuff, just having fun. I have a modest musings about that if you go back a little bit on just learning and have fun and not actually worrying as much about winning in StarCraft. But yeah, that's pretty much all in the pipeline for me. So thank you so much and have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your week. Keep StarCrafting.